This is Jerry Calhoun, and you are listening to the Live in Color Wolfie D podcast.
Hey, this is Jimmy Street, host of the Live and in Color with Wolfie D podcast. Hear the life and times of professional wrestler Wolfie D. From his time in the territories with PG-13 to his time in WWE, ECW, WCW, TNA, and more. Nothing is off limits and nothing will be held back. Thanks again for tuning in. Here he is, Wolfie D. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome one more time to the Live and in Color with Wolfie D podcast. And today we are welcoming the Memphis Referee, Mr. Jerry Calhoun. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing fine, thank you. And I want to thank you and Wolfie and the whole podcast team for having me on your podcast. And anytime I can talk Memphis wrestling, I'm for it.
That's awesome.
We're glad to have you. So let's jump right into this thing, man. Obviously, you were gone. So you were getting out of the business by the time that I got in it. So, but you have read some of my matches on down the line on some independent stuff in Memphis and things like that.
Right.
Were you a wrestling fan growing up? What got you into it?
Oh, yes. I was a big wrestling fan. I mean, I watched it from the time I was a little kid when it was at Ellis Auditorium, and I used to throw papers downtown, and every Monday night I would go to the Ellis Auditorium and sell wrestling programs. So I was in. I mean, I just loved it. And how I fell into it was just awesome. I mean, me and Jerry were married to high school sweethearts.
Right.
And then he lived in Nashville. Well, Hendersonville, outside of Nashville. And that's where all the wrestlers lived back in the early 70s. And so I started riding with him on Fridays and Saturday nights when he'd come into town to go to the wrestling shows. And Friday night would be Tupelo, Saturday night would be Jonesboro. And so, me and my brother-in-law, so we just started riding. I enjoyed it. I'd go to towns with him every weekend. Right. So, and from that point forward, I started going with him, and then one day he was coming to pick me up on a Friday. We was going to go to Tupelo, and he said, "Hey, what do you think about refereeing?" And I'm looking at him. I said, "What? Baseball, basketball? Well, what are you talking about?" So he said, "No, wrestling." And I said, "Man, I don't know anything about refereeing." He said, "Come on, you get the hang of it." I said, "Okay." So
on the job training.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. It was on the job training. Because I went to Friday night, we'd go to Tupelo, and finally I get to referee the main event. That's the first matches I ever refereed was the main event. I just go figure, right? You think you start from the bottom and work up, but I started from the top. And the main event was Jerry Jarrett and Tojo Yamamoto against Jerry Lawler and Jim White and Sam Bass, of course, the manager. And so it was like on-the-job training that night. What an experience. I mean, I was just going back and forth from one to the other. And I was like, wow, what am I doing? I said, I hope I can survive this without, killing the business or whatever. So that's what happened. And that's how I got, learned how to referee, just on-the-job training. Not like anybody. I went to a training school and somebody come up to me and said, "Hey, you want to learn how to referee?" I said, "No, it was on the job."
On the job. But that's what people don't understand, man, because a referee can absolutely 100% make or break your match. It can make your match better. It can make it horrible if the referee is not good. And, after you got out of wrestling, the pool for Memphis referees was not the greatest. It was like sometimes. And then you had Frank, when Frank started doing it, and when me and Jamie first started, Frank did not like me whatsoever, and he counted me out when it wasn't the finish. He pinned me when it wasn't the finish. I mean, he slapped me in the ring one time.
Oh wow!
Yeah, but then,
I didn't know that. I didn't know Frank didn't like you.
Yeah, but then we ended up riding together. But it was just at first. I don't know what he thought.
Yeah.
It was, I was trying to, Frank didn't like getting heat on him. And I was a heel, and I was slaps it out of me.
Some referees are like that. So I'm not saying Frank was like that, because I didn't, watch him that much as far as being a referee. But, some of them just won't allow it.
Getting engaged is a moment worth cherishing. A one-of-a-kind ring that you design at Blue Nile can help your love sparkle. Just choose your diamond and setting. When you've found the one, you'll get it delivered right to your door. Finding the right engagement ring can be nerve-wracking. At Blue Nile, you'll have the expert guidance needed and a diamond guarantee that ensures you're getting the highest quality at the best price. Cherish all of life's moments and save up to 30% at BlueNile.com. That's BlueNile.com.
Hey folks, to get your official Live and in Color with Wolfie D merchandise, go to ProWrestlingTees.com/Live Wolfie D. Check it out.
If you're listening to Live and in Color with Wolfie D on Apple Podcast and like what you're hearing, go ahead and leave a 5-star rating. And while you're at it, write a review. Tell us what you liked. Tell us what you'd like to hear in the future. It's very important to us and always appreciated. Thanks again.
Let's talk about, you were the referee with the Jerry Lawler, Andy Kaufman big match.
Yes.
So you kind of hinted towards this to me yesterday when we talked. I didn't know. So you were smart to it. Y'all three were the only ones smart to it. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
So just tell me how that all worked out and what you thought about all that.
Well, the beginning of it, Andy Kaufman wrestled women.
Right.
Yeah. So that's when he came into here, and I'm sure Lawler, if you had Lawler on, he probably told you the whole thing how he started here.
Yeah.
I didn't repeat myself by what he said. Anyway, he started with wrestling women, and then eventually worked it up where they were going to have he was going to have an angle with Lawler.
Yeah.
And so, before the first match that they had, I remember getting together. I was at my house. We went to my house and went over what was going to happen, and et cetera. And so then they had the match. And then Andy, he was like very, I won't say reserved, but back in the back, he wouldn't really go talk to anybody. He was really quiet. Like you come up to talk to him, he'd talk to you, but I guess he had his reservations, or just, he's just quiet. So anyway, but that's a different story once you put a mic in front of him or a camera in front of him, and then you can see what he does on the mic. But when they had the match, I'm sure he was a little scared being the first time, wrestling a male wrestler, but they had it pretty well, what they plan on doing, and I thought it went well. So,
I'll tell
you what, it was
the biggest angles
of
ever.
all the matches. Yeah, of all the matches, that was one of the most famous matches for Memphis wrestling. If Memphis wasn't on the map somewhere, that's where it was, because of Andy Kaufman and Jerry Lawler. And, of course, what started from that, then the movie, and then the Lawler on Letterman and Kaufman.
Now, did you think, because I'm telling you, when that happened, like, I watched that over, and I had it on VHS, and I watched it over and over and over. And I don't want to say I was, at that age, 100% smart or whatever, but I kind of knew what was going on because I'd watched it so much and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But that back suplex, when he gave him that first back suplex and dumped him on his head, I thought that killed him. What did you think?
Well, it looked good. I'm telling you.
It sure did.
That looked good. It also when Lawler power driving. So
I really thought in my head that's what hurt him. Though I thought if he got hurt, it had to have been that back suplex. His feet touched over his head when he landed.
Well, I guess the story on that. After he got power drived, and then I ended up disqualifying Lawler for the power drive because you couldn't do it back then, or you get it disqualified.
Right.
And, I'll probably repeat myself. I don't know what Lawler said, but anyway.
No, it's okay.
Kaufman's on the match. Kaufman's on the match, and he's telling me, and I'm down there with him. He's saying, "I want an ambulance." I said, ambulance? So I went over, like I'm talking to him, like I'm what are you doing?
Yeah.
But in other words, I'm saying, hey, he wants an ambulance. He said, I'm not paying for an ambulance. Go tell him that. He said, all right. So I go back to him. Hey, how's your neck? And I'm saying, Lawler's not going to pay for an ambulance. He said, okay, I will. So I go back to Lawler and said, hey, he's going to pay for the ambulance. I said, okay. So I go back to tell him, okay, you're on.
Wow.
So
I didn't know
to the hospital, I think a day or two. Yeah, he went to the hospital. I think he stayed a day or two in the hospital. So.
Really? He worked the hospital staff?
Oh, yeah, evidently.
Pretty good.
Jerry, I did some research on you, and some things popped up that I thought were just absolutely too interesting not to mention. My first question is the famous car ride where you had Paul Orndorff and Mike Stark in the car with you. Now, what I've read is this was kind of early on in your career, so you weren't really knowledgeable to the whole reason of it. Now, I could be wrong on that. That's why I'm going to let you straighten out the story. But tell us about that story and the possible firing.
Well, it was firing, but we was in Dyersburg, Tennessee, and me and Mike, me and Lawler would always ride together, but when he's not out of town or whatever, so I'd ride with others, so and me and Mike Stark used to ride a lot together. So we went to Dyersburg, and this was Friday night, so we was did his thing. He wrestled, and then at the end of it, Paul Orndorff come up and said, hey, man, I need a ride back to Memphis. Can you take me? I'm thinking, so, one of the first things you don't let happen is your heel and babyface ride together. But
yeah.
I knew I should have said no, but and I don't know why I did, but I said, okay. So we get in the car, going back to Memphis, and happened to be at a red light. And I don't know why, for the life of me, I had my light on. Maybe I was looking for something, inside light of the car.
Yeah, yeah.
And evidently some people that recognized us, saw us and went on back to Memphis, didn't think nothing of it. Didn't hear anything about that. Then I believe it was Friday night or Thursday night, Friday night, God and I were going to Helena, Arkansas, I believe it was. So we were there, and then finally he just had to mention me, you're fired, don't you? I said, I'm what? He said, you're fired. Jerry wanted me to fire you. And he told me it's because of Orndorff and Stark riding together with the heel on the babyface. I said, oh, man. So I said, well, why am I hearing about this now? That happened last Friday. So I think Lawler might have talked him out or worked with him, and eventually, I didn't miss any time, so I guess that was a awakening, and to make sure you don't let that happen again. I said, okay, I learned my lesson.
That's pretty interesting. I couldn't wait to ask you about that when I heard about it. So
yeah. Well, I almost got fired on that.
I just have to ask this other question because it's right here in front of me. I heard you're a pretty dangerous man to play pickup football with as well.
Oh, my goodness. I mean, if I had one thing to do over, that would be the thing when I broke Lawler's leg. We always played pickup football every Sunday. We played tackle. I mean, it would get vicious sometimes. And so we was waiting on the players to come up. We waiting on everybody to show up. So we might have had 6 on the side at the time. So we were just playing just for waiting more players to show up. And Lawler was on the other team. I was the opposite. I was the safety. And so he did like the end around. So he was running down the sidelines, and I was just going toward him. And I'm telling you, I never made a body block in my life ever since I've been playing up until then. I would throw a body block. But lo and behold, I go and I hit him, and I threw a body block, and I hit his right leg, and his right leg stayed in the ground. And I'm hard of hearing anyway. I didn't hear it, but the players down the field just said pop. They heard a loud pop. And of course, I broke his leg. I broke both bones in his right leg. And the ironic thing about that was he just bought him new cleats the day before. So he had also new cleats. So maybe that helped him keep that foot in the ground when I hit him. And my gosh, he was out for a year on that. I mean, he used to live with me when it comes to Memphis because when he still lived in Hendersonville. So he would live with me, and so that wouldn't cost him. So saved him something on that. But
I don't remember. Did they work an angle on that, or did they just say he broke his leg playing football?
No, they didn't work. No. Let me tell you something. Once Jerry found out that I broke his leg in football, now, he didn't say anything to me, but he wouldn't even talk to Lawler for I don't know how long. I mean, he always told Lawler, you're going to get hurt, quit playing that game. You're not a pro. Why are you doing it? So, but we all love to play it,
Right.
Yeah.
That wasn't a gimmick to nowhere around that. So, and not only that, I have to share this with you. I broke his leg, and it had to be maybe a couple of months later. Now, we played softball together and football together, so we did it all every weekend. Well, we played a softball game in Millington, Tennessee, and I played the outfield and a shortstop. It was named Terry Presco. He was a Hall of Famer at Memphis University at that time. Not at that time, but when he graduated. And where the ball hit, and then I was going for the ball, running in, and he was running out. I said, I got it, but I went down on one knee, and he just kept coming, and he hit my knee that I went down on. Daggum, I broke his leg. Same break in his leg that I had in Lawler's leg, but it was his left leg, and Lawler's was his right leg. Now, what are the odds on that? Breaking 2 legs within 6 months or something.
Oh, my goodness.
That's a great gimmick.
Never let that down. Everybody said, I don't ever want to play ball with you anymore. You break my leg.
Ending careers.
Oh, my goodness. Ironic about that. Lawler, when the week I broke his leg, I think it was a week or two before that, we was playing somebody that we didn't know. Sometimes we play, somebody want to play us, and we play pickup, and we didn't know them. And of course, everybody on our side we knew, and so we played them. And he broke one of the persons on the other side, collarbone. So, and not only that, I mean, I tore ACL in my leg playing that, So I look back on that, and I said, we should have listened to Jerry when he said, don't do that. But, we enjoyed it when we played it, though.
Right. Well, let's go back to talking about wrestling again. Who to you, I don't know that you had somebody you looked up to as a referee that you tried to mimic or anything like that, but who do you think the best referee in the business was, whatever?
You know what? I really didn't look up to anyone other than I liked the referees, some of them. But nobody, like I said, nobody taught me how to referee, and I did a bad job or good job. I had a few comments after the matches, thank you for what I refereed. I'll never forget one of them was Bruiser Brody.
Wow.
A couple others, So, I really made me feel good when they come up and say, hey, I enjoyed the way you refereed the match. But I can't think of it. I mean, I think one of the good ones was, and I can't think of his full name, was Patrick.
Nick Patrick.
Nick Patrick, that's it. And WCW. So, but
he was darn good, too.
Now, somebody like Tommy Young, who had this really dramatic style about him, it almost kind of took away from some of the match. I know I don't want to speak ill of Tommy Young. I think he's a great ref, but, it was almost, he was kind of being a little bit of a performer, little bit of flair to him, I guess, which is work because he worked so much with Ric Flair. So,
well, I honestly can say I didn't watch. I mean, I watched wrestling, but I didn't watch the referees as much. I just I didn't pick up anything from any referee. So,
okay.
And I don't know if they ever picked up anything from me either. But I know one thing. I don't know where I started it, but if you ever watch some matches, I got to the point where, I'm just standing there like a statue. I got to do something, so I started doing mimics of what would happen, or drop an elbow, or drop a leg, or whatever it is. So I started doing those just to have some action. So I'm almost like, I'm going to be involved too. Flip me and give me a body slam.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite match that you refereed?
I'll be honest with you. I've been asked that a lot. And there's so many. Lawler, and I was fortunate enough to referee a lot of the main events at the Coliseum.
Right.
And Lawler wrestled some of the top names in the business.
Right.
Some like the Hulk, Nick Bockwinkel, Kurt Hennig, Terry Funk, Jerry Jack Briscoe, Bam Bam, Rocky Johnson, Ric Flair on TV. Harley Race. I mean, I can keep on. Reggie Savage, Master Payne, who would eventually come to Undertaker.
Yeah.
Cactus Jack, or eventually come to Mick Foley. So I can't say I have a favorite match other than they were all. I mean, you watch a lot those matches I mentioned and others. That with Jesse Ventura and the Sheik and the rest of Dusty Rhodes. I mean, they were all. They were just fantastic matches. But if I had to pinpoint, I'm not saying they had fantastic and also, but they had a real good match with Lawler and Dundee. I mean, if you ever watch YouTube and watch the matches between those two, I mean, you're talking about knockdown, drag out. It was just unreal what they did. And what made it so good was the stipulations for their matches. They had a match where a loser would leave town. They had a match where a car was involved, who the winner would get the car. They had a hair and hair match against one another. Somebody had to lose their hair. And then the one of all that beat all of them was a hair match, Lawler's hair against Dundee's wife's hair.
Yeah, Beverly's hair.
Beverly. And Dundee lost the match, and she lost her hair. And so, that's just
dedication.
enough about the matches they had.
Yeah, I used to like watching the clips of that stuff because the way it just reminded me of like a Rocky movie or something. The way because they wouldn't take like when they punched each other, and they're both tired, and they weren't taking like textbook bumps. They were taking bumps that looked like they were tired and in a fight, and just made it so believable.
I'm telling you, if somebody like in WWE, I'm sure they watch some matches that are on YouTube or what, but I would certainly recommend highly watching Dundee and Lawler matches. I was just enjoying it because I was just happened to be lucky enough to watch this and be in the ring with them. It was just fantastic.
Yeah. And I think, and I know you probably feel the same way, but to me, Jerry Lawler, it's a toss-up for me to say he is probably the best wrestler I've ever watched. I think he's that good. I think he's better than Flair.
Yeah. And the thing about Jerry, I'm biased.
Yeah.
I'm biased with Jerry, but he can be either a brawler, whoever he's fighting, whether get in the ring and you're going to start brawling with a Bruiser Brody or Jimmy Valiant or whoever, or he can be scientific, which you're wrestling Kurt Hennig or Nick Bockwinkel. So he can go to one or the other. I mean, that's what was so great about him. And also, you can have, Wolfie, you can have wrestlers that can wrestle, but they can't talk.
Right.
Then you have others that can talk, but they can't wrestle. But he hasn't had both of them, and he's one of the few that's like that.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that.
You speak about people that can talk but can't wrestle. Talk about your feud with Jimmy Hart.
Oh, yeah, I tell you what, that was fun. I mean, I enjoyed that. I mean, that was one of Lawler's ideas, and I don't know if it's good or bad, but when Lawler first got into business, I mean, it was, through Jerry. Jerry got him in business, just like he got me in business and others. And we would go down on a Friday night coming back from Tupelo, and we'd go to a Holiday Inn or whatever, and that's where Jimmy and his band, he played for the Gentrys, and that's where his band would sing every Friday night. So we'd go see him just about every Friday night, and then eventually one thing led to another, and got Jimmy in the business. And so we ended up going, riding together, me, Jimmy, and Lawler going to towns on the weekend. And so eventually, and that we went on for 2 or 3 years up until 1980 when I broke Lawler's leg, and then that had to stop because then he was a heel, and that's when Lawler come back. He was the babyface. But I'll tell you what, Jimmy Hart was one that kept Memphis going when Lawler was out of commission for that year, because he bring in people, then the heels and wrestle against they get on top to wrestle them. But he was one that had to heat. He was the one that that made the people come in to watch the matches and just to see him get beat up. I mean, he got the heat like no other. And as far as me wrestling, I mean, we did our rolling around the ring and had fun, but that was experience. I mean, that was one of the first times I ever put on tights. Was of course there was some of Lawler's old tights, so I was he let me have them, so that's what I used to wrestle hard. But not only that, I mean, I got into it the other times when I wrestled Jimmy Cornette. When he was managing, I think, along with Miss Linda and Adrian Street when Dundee was my part, and we wrestled them in a match. And of course, I was more of like a job boy. I'm just the way I wrestled. I get the heck beat out of me. And then Miss Linda, probably the only referee or wrestler that I think at that time a woman slammed. So she picked me up and slammed me. And then also it was me and Dundee again against Master of Pain, and I forget who his partner was, but that was Undertaker at the time. I mean, so we had wrestled that time. So, and I say I wrestled, I'm using that loosely because I didn't wrestle. I was more like, get in there and get beat up and give a hot tag to Dundee and he do his thing. So,
right.
Unfortunately, that didn't last long because I couldn't make it as a wrestler. Of course, I didn't have the body for it either.
One thing that I read as well is I kind of want to get your input on this. There was a time that you were refereeing a match between Jerry Lawler and Austin Idol, and one wildfire was under the ring.
Oh, man. That was one of the most unique matches you ever want to see. And matter of fact, the match was a hair match, Lawler against Austin Idol. One of them had to lose their hair. And not only that, there was a cage match, and anything goes. So you're right. Tommy Rich was under the ring, but Tommy Rich got under the ring before they let the people in. So get this, he was under the ring all through all the matches up to, the main event when it started between Idol and Lawler. He was under that ring for a long time. Because there's a cage match also. So they had the cage match, so of course nobody could get in, so that's the reason he was under the ring. So when they had the match and then the finish occurred, of course they both beat up on Lawler, and then I had to count Lawler out 1, 2, 3, and that was one of the first of any times I can remember Lawler losing his hair. So yeah, I guarantee that surprised the people a lot there from him coming up from under the ring. And it's so funny about that, I think he took him a 6-pack. To keep him busy.
I think I've heard Tommy that he was sitting there with some beer.
Break up the boredom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he had to have, if he was drinking beer and he was under there for that long, he had to have took bottles or something to pee in,
Well, I don't think he had bottles.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. So.
Feel bad for the ring crew.
Yeah, poor ring crew. Not only tearing the ring down, but mopping up.
One other question I got here, too, is, Wolfie talks about this all the time with us. When he's at shows, I think it was a Buddy Wayne show he was on where he dealt with some violent fans. Recently Seth Rollins had this issue on WWE Raw where a fan attacked him. Tell us a crazy story that you've seen with a violent fan before.
I have one, I have to put a caveat on this. I mean, you'd think many times that you might get attacked or whatever, and I didn't get attacked a lot, but I got a lot of stuff thrown at me. But I can remember the one time, it was in the 70s, when Lawler was a heel and he was wrestling Jackie Fargo in Senatobia, Mississippi. And Lawler had a lot of heat. Everybody wanted to come see him get beat up. Well, unfortunately for the fans, it didn't please them. So what happened is Lawler beat Fargo. Well, the fans were really mad at me. So I'm looking, and I'm trying to get from the ring to back in the back, and there's no security whatsoever. And Jackie Fargo, God bless his soul, he wrapped me, threw me under his arm, and led me all the way back to the dressing room. And the people were just grabbing at me, trying to hit me and just throwing stuff at me. I don't think they hit Jackie. I think with the stuff they threw, it was more hitting me. But I said, no telling what it would have end up if I hadn't had Jackie to support me back to the dressing room.
Wow.
I always tell him, I always thank him. I said, man, you saved my life, Senatobia, Mississippi that night. And you have fans and Wolfie, this, fans that get mad at you and throw stuff and, hopefully they hit you with a bottle and knock you out. But
I've been
in the ring, stuff throwing at you.
I've had him jump in the ring. That.
Yeah. Matter of fact, I had one guy was in Trenton, Tennessee one time, and it was me, and gosh, I'm sorry, my memory goes on me on some stuff, and I can't remember who this guy was. He thought he was a wrestler, but he come into the ring, and that's the last thing that he probably remembers when he got in the ring, the babyface and heel, and both jumped on him and beat him up. So the ironic thing about that, he ended up suing Eddie in the promotion there. So we had to go to Trenton, Tennessee to the court. So they had to interview each and every one of us about the event that happened and then what happened to the guy that is suing. And that's who we got in the ring. I think the result was they ended up throwing it out. So fortunately for us. But then the bad thing about, if you get somebody to sue you and you got to go to that court, the court date, you got to be there, and you're thinking, wow, what's going to happen here? It makes me think of another one, and early on wrestling in the Memphis days when Lawler had Mickey Poole as a manager. that was back in maybe 77, I think. But anyway, we had a cage match, and Lawler, and I can't remember who his opponent was, but lo and behold, we see this guy just climbing up. You can hear him like saying, "Dundee, I'm going to come save you," and he's climbing up the cage and gets in the ring. Well, Mickey Poole and Lawler just beat the heck out of him, and the police, you can see them all around the ring. Throw him down, get him out. Now, they didn't in the ring because of the cage, so we're lifting him, pick him up, and we throw him. And you're looking at the bottom, and you see about 3 or 4 policemen just all together like they're going to catch him. And then once we get him and throw him over, they all scatter, and he just hits the concrete. So I don't know if that was what they wanted to do, or they might get hurt from him, and they're throwing him over the top of the cage, but they scattered.
Hell of a drop.
No kidding. Golly.
I'm sorry, guys. I knew there was more, but I just remember them. So I forget. Like me and Lawler get together sometimes. He'll say, "You remember this?" And I say, "No." And then I say, "You remember this?" And he said, "No." I said, "Boy, I don't remember that at all." So,
I've forgotten a lot myself.
Yeah.
Well,
Another
you took a
thing.
lot more bumps than I did, so I can understand that.
Wolfie was a bumping machine, and he actually just wrestled another match. Did you know about that in Jackson, Tennessee?
Yeah, you know what? Matter of fact, I mentioned it to Lawler. Me and Lawler went out to eat Saturday night, and then we went to a concert, and then I told him I talked to Wolfie and going to be on his podcast. And Wolfie said the same thing, said how he got blown up after about 5 seconds being thrown from one corner of the ring to the other. And he said he had to be like Tag Lawler, right? He did it just so he could catch his breath.
I just had so many injuries that as far as getting blown up, yes, I did. But a lot of it was just my knees bad, my hips bad. I need neck surgery. I mean, man.
Bionic Man, that's going to be his new gimmick.
I'm telling you, after I talked to him, I said, "My goodness, Wolf, I didn't know anything was like that wrong with you." I thought, I knew you had a heart problem, and then you started mentioning everything else. I said, "Geez, get that fixed. You'll become a new man then."
Yeah.
Let's take a quick time out and get a word from one of my dope-ass sponsors, and we'll be right back with more Live and in Color with Wolfie D. Hey folks, this is Wolfie D here, and if you are looking to buy or sell a home in Tennessee or Southern Kentucky, you're going to want to call my buddy, the rock star realtor, Benji Bowie. And you say, "Wolfie, how do I get in touch with this rock star?" Well, you can call him directly at 615-390-8216. You can go to his website, bowiehomes.com. That's B-U-I-E homes.com. Or you can email him at benbowie34@gmail.com. When you need a home, you need the Rockstar Realtor.
Benji is a member of Exit Realty's Garden Gate team in Gallatin, Tennessee.
Hey there. Did you know Kroger always gives you savings and rewards on top of our lower than low prices? And when you download the Kroger app, you'll enjoy over $500 in savings every week with digital coupons. And don't forget fuel points to help you save up to $1 per gallon at the pump. Want to save even more? With a Boost membership, you'll get double fuel points and free delivery. So shop and save big at Kroger today. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Savings may vary by state. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
I always like to ask referees and anybody in the business, especially during that time, tell us about some ribs that you've seen.
Oh, my gosh. Let me tell you something. The ribs I've seen were mainly on me.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if I want to mention all of them, but I
understand.
Well, the Wolfie, you can, it's once you first time get in the business, somebody's going to rib you,
Okay.
And Jackie Fargo was a master at this, and I don't know if I should say one of them, but I guess I'll go ahead and do it. But one of the ones where, you get in the dressing room and you do the old finger test, they think you can close your eyes and walk sideways, and they put a spot on the wall, and your finger's supposed to get right in the middle of that spot, but you can't look. You got to close your eyes and you're walking sideways. Well, I can't see where that's going. I don't know if I want to go any further with it, but Jackie Fargo said, "Hey, you can't do that." And I said, "Oh, I know I can." And so I do that, and I'm going to that ring on the wall, and fortunately enough, I opened my eyes before it went to where I thought it was going to be. That was Jackie bending over, my fingers going up his butt.
Oh, man.
and then another one was when I was talking about football earlier. I tore my ACL, and so, but I still was able to referee. I put a brace on it. So we was in Clarksdale, Mississippi one night, and Lawler and Phil Hickerson and others. But and what we did, we wrestled at a high school, and we wrestled. The wrestlers were all behind the curtain. So one side was the heel, the other side was the babyface. And that's right after I hurt my knee, so I was wearing a knee brace. And it's on a stage with the dressing, with the curtain. And so we're back there, and I had to adjust my knee brace. So I pulled my pants down, and I got my knee brace. I'm adjusting it. Next thing you know, I didn't know this until later. Lawler saw Hickerson on the other side of the curtain and said, "Open it." I said, "Okay." So they opened it up. Well, here I am in the middle of the stage, my butt facing the audience and my pants down by my knees when I'm adjusting my knee brace. And they said, "Look at that." Next thing I hear a big loud roar. And I'm like, what is that? And I look back today. Oh, my gosh, they're all looking at me. My pants down by my knees. Yeah, when you have, and again, Wolfie, when you're going up and down the road, you get bored. And one of the best ribs was Lawler when he had a blue light. He had a blue light.
Oh, I heard about that, yeah.
So we go out when we go out of town. When we coming back, it's always coming back from the town, because we got through wrestling. So you can catch up with some wrestlers, they're still on the road. So he would know their car, so he would put that blue light on. And we would pull over some of the wrestlers, and the one we tried to key on was the one by themselves, because that way, you couldn't have somebody say, "Oh, it's Lawler." So that's mainly the ones that were by themselves. And so we'd get them out of the car and they'd just turn around and just start saying, thinking they're going to jail. "You've been drinking, we're going to take you to jail," and all the antics that happened after that when we get them out of the car. Oh, it was
he's told that story to me. I can't remember who he did it to, but it was like his favorite one or whatever.
Well, I'll tell you what, he did one on Paul Morton. And the one on Paul Morton was, I think Paul was by himself, and Paul pulled him over. and he said, all right, and of course, Paul didn't know it was Lawler, so he was making him do some, put your hands on your head, touch your knees, do this. And then he said, "Oh, have you been drinking?" I said, "Oh, no, I haven't been drinking at all." I said, "Well, are you sure?" He said, "Oh, no way." And so he said, "Do you think I could be doing this if I was drinking?" He started jumping up and down, doing all kind of acts.
I think that might be
trying to show that he wasn't drunk, and then he turns around and sees Lawler. So, of course, Lawler can tell it better than me, but I can't remember all what he did. But it was like just almost doing flips just to show he wasn't drunk. We had some good ones on that one though. It's one of those when you're doing that and you say, "Oh man, I wish I kept a diary." Because that's one of the things I wish back in my past when I was doing this, that I wrote down a diary what everything happened that day.
Yeah,
or goodness.
Like all the people I've been around, and because it was taboo back then to. You'd be a mark if you asked somebody to take a picture with you. You know what I mean? Now, but I think of all the people.
And you're right. That's the other thing. I wish I had a picture with more of the wrestlers. So you're thinking, you think about it. A lot of the wrestlers that come through Memphis that went through the WWE made it big. I mean, name the ones on top that come through here. Randy Savage, Undertaker, Mick Foley, Sting, Ultimate Warrior, and I can go on. Randy Savage. I'll leave a lot more out.
Yeah,
a whole slew of them.
We've said it a million times on the podcast. If they were somebody in the business, they went through Memphis. It's just how it is.
I never forget the first time I saw Hulk Hogan, and the first time he was at TV, and it was in the back. We'd all dressed right there about a candy machine or whatever. And I remember walking back to back and said, "Dang, here this guy was like almost 6'9", built like a brick, and I said, holy mackerel." He's ready to be, he's a wrestler. And lo and behold, he certainly ended up one.
Changed the business.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, big time.
Who was more impressive to see, Hogan or Andre?
Oh, well, Andre, by far. I mean, you shake Andre's hand, and my hand would just be, you couldn't see it.
Yeah.
He was just huge. And I think Lawler wrestled a few times too. Tag match also. But they say he could drink a case of beer at night, and I believe it. I mean, sort of like one of the, and he was one of the ones, that you can't use every week because he's one more of attraction you bring in.
Right.
I always think about, I don't know if you ever heard them back then, they called the McGuire twins.
Yeah.
The guys was, I swear, I don't remember, 400 to 500 pounds each. Well, when they walk to the ring, they get blown up. So in other words, they were only an attraction for that particular time, not every week. So,
yeah.
I've heard a story that Jim Ross had to take care of them on the road, and actually Jim had to help him sometimes in the bathroom. So, yeah.
I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, you think if they can get blown up from going from walking to the ring, and once they get in the ring, they can't do much.
Right.
I don't, unreal.
Yeah, that's a horrible. Anyway, so what we're going to do here right now is our current affairs, sponsored by Coach's Corner Sports Grill. DJ, hit the music.
It's a current affair. It's a current affair. Love it in color. It's a current affair. Love it in color.
All right, we're back with current affairs. And today we're with the Memphis Referee. If you think referee in Memphis, you think Jerry Calhoun. Jerry, once again, thank you so much for being a part of our show today. Whenever we have a guest on, I like to make the current affairs catered to them. And where you are a referee, I've kind of compiled some questions here that, to me, kind of hopefully we'll get your expertise on this. So the number one is current refs, and how would you compare what they do now to your days, to what I consider the golden days of pro wrestling? How would you compare the modern day refs and how they are to you guys?
Oh, I'm sorry. I haven't seen much modern day refs that much compared to the guys in the past. I mean, I can only, I just wanted to tell you what I did, so I know I would always, I know when to get in between the wrestlers and know when to stay away, and that one of the key ones, because I know most of the wrestlers, when you're beginning a match, you don't want to, don't like to let the babyface get to the heel, because they want to say that for more along when you get into the match. So I would always step in between and do something like that. But as far as watching current referees, past referees, I'm sorry, I can't add much input to that.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. I mean, if you were to give some advice to current referees, not having to know what they do, but if there was one piece of advice that you think they should know, what would you say?
Well, I mean, what I previously mentioned, but another one would stay out of the way. Sometimes, stay out of the way when you're supposed to, not when you need to be in the way at some points. So,
yeah, well, my second question in current affairs, and thank you, that's a great answer there. A lot of times today, what I see is that they put a lot of heat on the refs by doing certain things. Now, again, I know you don't watch the current, but was that even an issue back then that you guys made sure to not put too much heat on the referee?
Oh, I don't look at it that. I look at it more as what the finish called for, and sometimes the finish would call for was there would be heat on the referee. So I didn't mind that at all. I never, mind one bit, or whatever the finish was, to put the heat on the referee. Where, of course, the majority of the time I would get knocked down, like Jack Eaton used to call. He was a sportscaster for the NBC for the Channel 5 for the longest. He would say, I would get knocked down by a telephone call. And that's basically it. I mean, I always get knocked down, and then when I get knocked down, and then I come recover, and then I go to count. And most of the time, the babyface shoulders would be down. I count them out 1, 2, 3. Of course, what happened before that, I'm sure there was a lot of heat that went on. But that doesn't bother me. That never bothered me a bit. I mean, that's part of the business.
Just what it called for, basically.
And another one I'd add to that, when the heels are getting heat on the baby faces, and it's a tag team match or whatever, and the manager interferes. I don't mind. I know when to go to the baby face, to get him when he's trying to come in the ring and stay with him, so they can continue to get the heat on the baby faces behind me. I mean, that didn't bother me a bit. I mean, that's just part of the wrestling.
Yeah.
Some wouldn't do that. Sometimes some would want to turn around, or not even go to the baby face to allow the heat to occur. Now that
or they don't. Some referees just they're not even in the greatest. Like they got to be able to sell. You know, someone take a bump and it looks terrible, and they lay there.
Yeah.
Such an awkward position, and then suddenly when it's time for the count, they jump back up, they don't sell it right, or like you said, when they're distracting you. You know, I've had referees where I literally grab them by the shirt, like, don't turn around. You know, they're
Well, I would say one thing. I would always be when I get knocked down. I always try to be conscious of, so, you know, some way know when I'm supposed to be ready, you know, for the count.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be like laid down flat. I mean, I didn't do that at all. It's more like roam around. It was like when you really get hit. You get hit,
right.
You're gonna rub. I would say sell, but I don't know if people don't sell. But anyway, you would rub wherever you got hit. And then eventually you get your senses back, and then I say, oh, okay, go to the finish and count out.
Yeah.
Now, one thing that is pretty common, or not as common, I should say, it's common in WWE for there to be no color whatsoever, and it's very, very common in AEW for there to be color, and those are the two major companies now. How many times were you handed off a razor blade, and how many have you had to throw away, and anything like that?
That's a good question. I'll tell you what, I had first time I got juiced, or we used to call it juiced, you know, when you get blood, you know, they say you want juice or get juice. And so, you know, the first time I got juiced, or believe me, was Lawler did it to me. And what happened, you have a blade, the edge of a razor blade that you tape up and just have the point showing. And so that's what you would use to dig your forehead and start the blood. Well, I've never lost a blade, and you know why? I would always, when I refereed Lawler's matches and they're going to get juice, he was going to get juice, you know, I put the blade in my mouth.
Wow.
People would say, what? Yeah, I said, I would put it in the mouth. And because I knew if I put it in my hand, I'd drop it. If I put it in my pocket, I would have to go out of my pocket to dig into my pocket to get it. Well, then you smarten up the people and said, oh, look, see, he got the blade from his pocket. So I would always keep it in my mouth. So whenever Lawler was ready for it, he'd give me the cue, and I said, okay. So let's get in their front face lock or whatever it might be, and then I put it in his hand and then go from there. But I was lucky. I never dropped it because it was in my mouth.
Yeah.
I know.
You know, anyway, I mean, some like wrestlers, they put a tape to the, you know, put tape on their fingers or tape on their wrist, and they put it there. Yeah. But hopefully they don't lose it.
Yeah, I heard a story that Kerry Von Erich had him taped to his fingers, and he about bled to death before he made it to the ring. They had to make it a part of an angle one time. Have you heard that story?
Yes, I heard that.
Yeah.
What you said. I mean, and you know, you got to be careful with it, because if you mishandle the blade or the you know, where you're going to dig yourself with, you're going to cut yourself somewhere. Or you're going to lose it, and then no way you can get juice unless you get juice the hard way. You know, somebody.
Oh man. Yeah, that's not the way to get.
I have to referee your match one of the last times. I mean, somebody gave you the hard way, and you just beat the heck out of them. I know that.
Now tell us that one, Wolfie.
Hey, Wolfie, he didn't let the guy catch any air. I said, oh, goodness, he's beating the heck out of him. I said, I'm glad I'm not that guy. I would hate to actually get give Wolfie the hard way, you know. Next thing you know, I'm paying for
it. Do you remember that one, Wolfie?
I mean,
do you remember that, Wolfie?
I don't remember that thing, but I do know that, you know, when people screw up, I had the tendency to give them a number of receipts.
That was at the, matter of fact, man, probably the last match I refereed at Delta Fair, where they had the wrestling matches. And it was, yeah. So anyway.
Oh yeah. I remember that now. It was Ken Wayne's son, Eric Wayne, who I know he's a shithead. But it was me and Brian Lawler against him and somebody else. I don't remember who his partner was. Yeah, so it was the very beginning of the match, and I'm getting the lockup. I mean, it was a big house. I think dude was he'd never wrestled in front of that many people, man. And
boom, boom, boom. I'm getting on him, and I'm fixing to back him into the corner and have him reverse me, give me a backdrop and something else, just first little thing at the beginning. And just out of nowhere, and he's a left-hander, and he likes to throw those damn little forearm flipper gimmicks that I fucking hate. And so if you're left-handed, you should hit me on my right side of my face. Well, he swings out of nowhere and connects with the point of his elbow on the left side of my face.
Ooh.
And it hit my, afterwards, okay, my top row of teeth were numb for like a month.
Oh my God.
So it busted my nose at the same time. And it literally made me go cross-eyed, like I was seeing double. And I was like, motherfucker. I didn't go down, though.
Yeah.
So I grabbed him in a headlock real quick and just fucking wrenched him and held him. And I went over to Brian. I tagged Brian in. And like I said, I was seeing double. And so I just fucking kicked him as hard as I could. Boom. So I wasn't really shooting on him at that point. I was just pissed. So the rest of the match, I was real stiff with him. My sight came back, and I got back in there, and, we did the match or whatever. Now, if I'm this kid and I accidentally fucking whack somebody like that, I'm going to be waiting at the curtain to apologize to this fucking veteran that I just fucking bloodied his nose and numbed his fucking teeth and crossed his fucking eyes, right? Yeah. So I come back and he's nowhere to be found. Well, there's a battle royal at the end of the night, and I still didn't see this motherfucker until the battle royal. Okay, so as soon as the bell rings, I went straight over to him, wham, and I punched him in the face. Lefts, rights, pop, pop, pop. Fucking grab his back and fucking kneed him in the face. He's going, oh, God, Wolfie, I'm sorry. I said, wham, hit him again. And then I put him in a battle royal, you're not supposed to go down.
Right.
Because, you get stepped on and shit like that. Well, I fucking front face like this motherfucker and took him down, started choking the shit out of him, just fucking choking him. And the funniest part was Lawler was in the battle royal, and he comes walking by, and he looks down, and he goes, "What are y'all doing?" I fucking let him up and went to somebody else and all that shit. And I think I cussed him in the back afterwards, told him he was a fucking asshole.
Ooh, I started feeling
awesome.
sorry for the guy. Not Wolfie. Wolfie just beating the heck out of him.
Yeah. Well, one last current affair here, and you've spoken about him a couple times, and I don't know if you've heard this, but your man, Master Payne, The Undertaker, has been announced for the Hall of Fame. Give us a memory about The Undertaker.
Well, I probably already mentioned it when, I like Mark. I mean, he was a real nice guy. Of course, like you said, there's Master Payne here. And he took care of me when I was in the ring, when I wrestled him that one time. And I wouldn't, like I said again, I didn't wrestle him. I was just more of a punching bag for him. I like Mark. I mean, he was a nice guy and was long overdue. Of course, I guess once you retire, then you get in. How long it takes to get into Hall of Fame, but it's well deserved for him. I mean, he sold out a lot of arenas. Yeah,
he had to have been a presence too, I would assume. Seeing him for the first time, I would imagine. So,
I remember I was 6'6" or whatever, and then back then, he just, like I said, they was starting and had short hair, and then. Once he got to the gimmick, the Undertaker, I mean, he just took off.
Yeah, that's it. So thank you so much, Jerry, for coming on the show. It's definitely been something that I've wanted to have on a show. And when I ask him, I'm like, hey, let's get this guy on here. He's like, all right, yeah, I'll do that. So it's been a blessing not only to have Wolfie have this podcast with us, but also to have you on here, Jerry. Well,
I wish you all the best on this. It sounds like you got a good show and a lot of guests.
Yeah, I
hope I didn't ruin it for you.
No. Being great. Take us out, Wolfie.
All right, everybody. If you want a T-shirt, go to ProWrestlingTees.com. Look up Live It in Color with Wolfie D podcast page. There's plenty of shirts on there. I also still have the pint-size All-Stars for sale of PG-13. Contact me directly on that, either through the Live It in Color Facebook page or my personal Facebook page. Again, Jerry Calhoun, the Memphis Referee, just as much of a staple as Lance, Dave, Lawler, Jimmy Hart, and you are the referee that I think of when I think of Memphis Wrestling. And we appreciate you coming on. So for Jimmy Street, Jerry Calhoun, it's Wolfie D. Peace out.
The announcers on this program are selected and paid by parties other than this station, namely the promoters of Championship Wrestling.
And now a word from our sponsor.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling, the podcast that's based on the old school but can still help you find the good stuff from today. Jimmy Street and the Plastic Chic, Jared, are the undisputed tag team champions of the wrestling podcast world. From thought-provoking topics to superstar interviews to action figure expertise. This team does it all, and all they ask is, give me back my pro wrestling! Every other Thursday, wherever you listen to podcasts.
This is The Big Picture, Michael Jablonski. Don't forget to tune in every week to Jablonski's Pissed Off on the Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling YouTube channel.
The thoughts wrong in this sport. He's gonna tell you all about it. He doesn't care what you think. You're gonna hear all about it. Mike Jablonski. He's so pissed off. Mike Jablonski. He's so pissed off. Mike Jablonski. He's so pissed off. He's pissed off.
If you're a fan of rock and music, I'd really appreciate it if you took a moment to check out my podcast. It's called the Decibel Geek Podcast. We've been doing it for about 10 years now. We talk about Kiss. We talk about Ozzy. We talk about Motley Crue and Guns N' Roses and Metallica. We talk about all the legends from the 60s and on, up to brand new bands that you should be hearing about today that you're not going to hear on the radio. It's Decibel Geek. Wherever you find your podcasts, you'll find us there. If you love rock and roll, I can almost guarantee you're going to love my show.
If you're a pro wrestling fan, there's something for everyone at the Cheap Heat TV Podcast Network. From the Pro Wrestling Discussion Show, Cheap Heat TV Live, to the interview show, the Jackson Interaction Podcast with the king of all wrestling media, Gene Jackson, to the silliness of the Whitey Jenkins Show, and the brand new Zip, Xander's Irresistible Podcast with Charles Anders. You can check them all out and much more over at cheapheattvlive.com.
So that was another great episode. Hey, Wolfie, tell them where they can find you on social media.
Jimmy, they can find me in the club, bottle full of bub. I'm just kidding. They can find me on Facebook. My personal page is Warren Wolf, WOLFE. I'm on Instagram at Warren Wolf 13.
You can always find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Live Wolfie D. And then on YouTube at Live and in Color with Wolfie D Podcast. Our website is anchor.fm/Wolfie D. Here's the thing. Wolfie always has offers for his autographed photos. He has a selection of some awesome photos from throughout his career that he will autograph and personalize any way that you want him to. Just contact him either directly at his personal Facebook page or through any one of our other pages, and we'll make sure you get in contact directly with Wolfie. Get those photos, right, Wolfie?
Yeah, I've got some good stuff on there, to help with the podcast.
Folks, if you can't get out to a show to meet Wolfie D, there's nothing like that, especially for the fans of PG-13 and Wolfie D. Also, do you have a product or business you'd like Wolfie D to talk about? Let us know about it by leaving a recorded message over at anchor.fm/Wolfie D/message. Leave your name and contact info and we'll get back to you. Once again, that's anchor.fm/Wolfie D/message. And before we go, you can always find me, your host, Jimmy Street, at James Rock Street on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube.
And hey, Jimmy, before we go real quick, I just want to add in there, from the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate, first of all, the work you've done for this podcast. You have worked your butt off. Secondly, the people that are liking the page. Beyond that, even more, is the people that are listening. And we really appreciate that.
Yeah, and remember, guys, the podcast drops a new episode every Monday at noon, and our past episodes are streaming now on demand on all major podcast formats. Thanks again.
I got a cat for you, don't. He got a cat for you, don't. I got a cat for you, don't. He got a cat for you, don't. He got a cat for you, don't.
And here we go, the original white boy that came out sagging, not bragging, don't be hating, cause I'm spitting the truth, still live and in color, from Rush your mother, utilize a hubcap, unlike any other. Back in the day, I was N-O-D, and I was P to the G, plus the 1 and the 3, in case you forgot, they call me Wolfie D, been cloned and copied so many times, tired of suckers taking for what is mine. You know who you are without me name dropping. Wrestling's first white boy coming out hip hopping. Been doing it like this since 92. Laid low for a while and you thought I was through. Listen real close to these rhymes that I've injected. This shit's so sick it makes your ears get infected. Mad skills, no faking, there is no one great. Cause I'm bringing more folks than Obi-Wan or Vader. Not here to play games, so you better beware. You don't like me, so what? I really don't care. Like time I keep ticking and I can't be stopped. You sucker step to the side unless you wanna get dropped. With my finish, I'll straight knock you out. Please allow me to tell you what it's all about. I'm gonna wind it up, then I'm driving it home. It's Wolfie D, baby. I got a cap for your dome. I got a cap for your dome. We got a cap for your dome. We got a cap for your dome.
This has been a James Rock Street production.